Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you for stopping by my channel today. I'm working on an art journal page for the Mission Inspiration Facebook group. So get comfy and let's get crafty. The April prompt card title is Awakening. The theme is blooming, rebirth, nature coming to life, rain, showers. The ideas are cherry blossoms, rain and umbrellas, bright flowers, and renewal. The elements are bird, ticket, tags, gold, and doodles. So, yeah. Check out what I'm going to do here. So I have printed my prompt card onto a piece of copy paper. My theme is only tangentially related. So I have a piece of pattern paper here that is 5.5 by 8.5 inches, and it looks like raindrops or water drops. It's a paisley shape, but whatever. And for one element of the doodles, I'm adding a layer of this Tim Holtz tissue paper. It's not really doodly, except that there's multiple elements. Like there's the butterflies, there's some sketches, there's some text, there's some music notes. I'm calling it doodles because I can, because it's my page. I am going to adhere the tissue paper down to my pattern paper with some Liquitex Matte Medium. So this is a not shiny adhesive. You've heard me say it before if you've been here before, but if the elements are shiny and sticky in the humid area that I live in, it can make the pages stick together, and I for sure don't want that. So I added a layer of the Liquitex liquid medium to the paper, and then I'm adding some over the top of the tissue paper as well. I did not guesstimate well enough to cover it side to side, top to bottom. I don't care. It's fine. I'm going to go ahead and heat set that medium. I did plan to fill in the edges and stuff, but it actually covered enough that I don't care. So anyway, I've been a little bit absent this week. My life has kind of been busy, so I had to kind of put a couple things on the back burner, including crime and coloring, which will be back on Monday. Also, I'll have Christmas on the 25th next week, even though I forgot to do one in March. So the next thing we're going to work on for this page is a tag. And I have one of these, I think it's a size 8 tag. It's for I used the Tim Holtz die, and I'm going to add some color to it with Distress acrylic paints. I'm using a pink and a blue and a yellow. I've put a tiny dot on my work surface, and I'm adding water to them, and then I'm picking up with a wet paintbrush as well. And I'm going to do some good old school ink smushing. So I just put the tag down on top of the puddles of ink, cleaned up the ink, heat set the layers that I had, and I noticed as I was heat setting it that pink really was over diluted and did not stand out like I wanted it to. So once I had this layer dried, I'm going to go ahead and add another little puddle or little drop of that pink acrylic paint back to my work surface and smush it again. And then I got over, it was a little too much pink, so I added some blue. I just went back and forth until it looked how I looked. So I was happy with how it looked. Because let's be honest, you can't make ink smushing, whatever the right word is. Words are hard. You can't control it. Next to watercoloring, it is probably the least most controllable way of adding color to your project. So I just kept adding pink, cleaned it up, realized, yeah, it's a little more pink than I want. Anyway, so it is Holy Week this week. Easter weekend is this weekend. My two oldest girls both have birthdays in April. My mother-in-law has a birthday in April. My sister, one of my younger sisters, has a birthday in April. My brother-in-law has a birthday in April. And you want to know where their birthday cards are? Sitting on my desk. In fact, I think I have March's birthday cards still sitting on my desk because my life has just been a little bit odd. When I have a minute to sit, I just want to sit because there's been so many bigger than average things going on. So once I had the tag all ink smushed, I went ahead and trimmed the excess tissue paper off the front of my page. We're going to add some doodles and some gold. So I grabbed some stencils that had doodle style patterns on them and some gold acrylic paint and an ink blending sponge or a paint sponge, whatever you want to call those. And I'm going around, this is a Delusion stencil. I'm using the triangles on the edge. I'm just kind of making some gold. Like I look at the page in real life, I can't really see what those shapes are. I can just see the gold on the back of the page. So it's not something that's dramatic. This stencil had some circles, and then this one has some kind of wonky stars. This is also a Delusions. The other one I think I got Michael's maybe. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and heat set all of that acrylic paint so that it is nice and dry. And then I want to add some drops. Now, this would have worked better on a thicker, more water sturdy paper, but this is scrapbook paper with a layer of liquid matte medium. So it is what it is. But I put some water in that gold paint pan. These are the, what are they called? They're the Gonzai Tombi Starry Colors. They're metallics, all different shades of gold. And I'm adding some gold watercolor paint to the top of the page with like a thick layer, and then taking some water in my paintbrush to kind of try and trigger some drips. Like I said, it would have been more successful with a paper that could hold a little bit more water. I did have to be a little bit conscious of that, that I was not working on watercolor paper or even mixed media paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep adding pigment to the top. I did use my spray bottle. This is my, I use it to wet my kid's hair down. I use it for all the things spray bottle. Stood up the paper, tapped it on its end, and kind of created some of those drips. Perfect. We're going to move on to the tickets. I have this old Stampin' Up! Ticket punch, and I'm going to take a piece of that pattern paper and add some of that gold acrylic paint to the back of it in layers. I'm using that makeup sponge, or it's not a makeup sponge, the paint sponge, sea sponge, whatever, craft sponge, whatever you want to call it. And I'm adding that in layers. I'm putting a layer down. I'm going to heat set it, and then I'm going to use the paint that's left in the sponge to add a second layer, just to kind of fill in any parts that white was kind of poking through. So once I did heat that on both sides to make that paper kind of uncurl a little bit. As it's drying, it tends to kind of curl up. But yeah, so once it's heat set, I'm going to pick up that sponge, fill in some of the places where the acrylic paint was not quite as layered, and heat set it again. And then I'm going to put it off to the side to let it finish drying. I don't want to attempt to punch that paper that's wet in the core with that paper punch. It'll just tear. So we're going to go ahead with the tag now. And I'm going to use my archival potting soil ink and an ink blending foam to go around the edges of this tag, just to kind of, this is the base layer for my focal image. And I want it to stand up off the background just a little bit, not super drastically, but just a little bit. So I'm adding some of that archival ink to the edges, nilly-willy. It doesn't come too far into the tag, but you know, just until I liked it. And then I thought this paper was dry enough to punch, and thankfully it was. And I'm punching it 3 times, and it will give me 3 large tickets and 3 small tickets, and I will use the sum of all of them. So we're going to put that off to the side and start putting our focal image together. The first thing I need to do is put that tag down, but I have some string. Now this is gold embossing thread, but it's meant to come apart really easy. So it took me a minute to get it looped tight enough to go through that hole in the tag. And I wanted to use this one in particular because then when I had it tied at the top in a knot, all of those strings would come undone. And on the front of my tag, I have this kind of, or the front of my page, I have this kind of nest of strings, which goes along with my other focal points. I did trim those down a little bit. They were a little bit long. I'm going to go ahead and pull the strings all to the front of the tag and figure out the rest. So my focal image is a bird, and this is kind of perfect for my life right now. So at Christmas time, we have some neighbors who went to upstate New York to visit their family Christmas tree farm, brought back a wreath for our front door, and I didn't take it down, and I didn't take it down, and I didn't take it down. And it was like March, and I realized this thing is dead. There's nothing green left in it. I went to take it down, and a robin had built a nest in this wreath, and there were 5 little eggs in this nest. So now I have this ugly, ugly, ugly wreath hanging on my door that I can't do anything with until those babies have flown away. So it was kind of perfect that bird was like one of the ingredients for this page. So I have this die set. I do have a nest die and a wreath die, but I have this die set. It's from Impression Obsession. It's really old, and it cuts out these kind of scribbled circles. So I cut 3 of them in a dark and a medium light color of brown and stacked them up on the centerpiece of the dark brown one to give that nest look. Now it's kind of a bird's eye view versus a looking straight at it view, but I'll make it work. I also have this die I got it at Hobby Lobby. It's, gosh, what is the brand of it? Momenta, I think. I don't remember, and I can't see it on my desk because my desk is a mess. It cuts out 3 different size branches. So I went ahead and cut them out of 3 different colors of green cardstock, and then I used my Pitt pen to make the branches actually brown. So I moved all of that twine out of the way, and I added my tag kind of sideways down to the front of my page. And now I'm going to add the branches on so there's a place for that nest to sit, like it's not just hovering in thin air. And I put glue on the branches and a few of the leaves, but I did leave the leaves that went up over the nest popping up so I can slip some birds into that nest. I also left the branches hanging off the page just a tiny bit, and I'll have to trim those off. And that was mostly just because they have kind of an angled end, and I wanted to cut them flat. The angle didn't work for this particular project. So I stacked them large, medium, small, so that with all my different shades of green, so that there is some dimension to that branch that this nest is hidden in. I have these birds from an ephemera pack that I got at Hobby Lobby, I think. And one of them was already cut, no white edge, and the other one wasn't. So I trimmed the white off of it, and I'm going around both of them with that archival ink. And I'm going to figure out how to get both of these birds in here. What I quickly realized was that this nest was not too bird big. It's like putting 2 people in a studio apartment. But I figured out that if I cut their feet off, which it doesn't hurt, I promise, I can wedge them down in that nest a little farther. So the little brown bird, the mama bird, I put some foam squares on the back of. These are from the Dollar Tree. I got them a couple years ago when I did a card class. So yeah, and I'm just going to slip that mama bird down into those branches. And then the dad bird, because the dads have all the color, right? The male birds have all the colors. I'm going to slip that one down in behind the mama bird. So they're kind of both sitting there, protecting their eggs. So the next element is tickets, and these are dry and I'm ready to add them. So I made 2 collage groups. I used 2 of the large tickets and 1 of the small tickets here in the top right corner. And I added a little archival ink to the top of that smaller ticket so it would kind of lift up off of the bottom tickets. And then I went around it with my mini Pitt pen in brown. Now, if I had gone over these with that matte medium, I could have smudged it out with my finger a little bit and given it a little bit more depth or shadow, but I didn't, and I didn't really care. I didn't think it needed it. The bottom left corner, I'm putting in 2 of the smaller tickets, just to create an odd number of tickets, but multiple groupings, because you've heard me say it before, my brain fights itself. Odd numbers and even numbers have different parts, purposes, but my brain wants to have all the things. So I did go around those again. I accidentally squeezed a little bit of that glue out, and I made sure to clean off my nib real quick before it ruined it. So don't do that. Make sure your glue is all the way dry. I thought I needed to add a few more doodles because those gold doodles are just not really standing out. So I grabbed a Zig pen and just added some doodles around the left and right side. And then I'm taking another piece of the same pattern paper. I have put adhesive on the edges with my ATG. I will add liquid adhesive to the center because that will give me just a minute to make sure things are lined up. And then I'm going to line up these pieces. Now, normally the back piece I leave larger and then trim it down, but for some reason I cut them both at the same time this time. So gratefully they lined up. Once I had the 2 pieces glued together, I went with my foam brush and went around the edges of the page. That just keeps any of the white from the back from showing through if I didn't line it up perfectly. The birds have kind of a shiny finish to them, so I went over them with a little bit of the matte medium just so that they're not shiny because the rest of the page isn't either. I did pull out my hole punch and put my page in and punch the holes in my page so I can stick it into my A5 size binder. I added some liquid glue to my prompt card and I glued it to the back of the page. That way I know why I did what I did, right? And then I fussed with the strings a little bit. I double checked that I had all of the elements. And then I pulled out my Tim Holtz Small Talk stickers and I added 3. And I added one that says, trust your crazy ideas, don't forget to fly. And the third one says, let life surprise you, which I thought was perfect given that I went to take down that Christmas wreath 3 months after Christmas, only to find it had a nest full of eggs in it, which have hatched, by the way. The little baby birdies are starting to hatch. Another funny thing, we're getting chickens today. So I don't know. This just kind of was perfect. All the birds and all the things. And here is the finished page. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today. I do have a couple of other videos right here that I think you would like. I've also added that subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you did. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me your favorite thing or your least favorite thing on this art journal page. Give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and have a really fabulous day.